Let's get ready to do a meditation. If you want to sit with your feet flat on the ground, try not crossing your ankles or your knees, top of the head, facing up to the ceiling. And then I'll invite you. Yes, it's somewhere comfortable, Erin. I can see you and a couple people moving around. That's wonderful. You can find a spot that's comfortable for you. And the invitation is either to sit with a soft gaze, looking a foot or two or three ahead of you, or you can actually choose also to just close your eyes. And so let's settle in a bit for this meditation as we achieve a state of relaxed but alert calm, as we get ready to take in the beautiful wisdom that Jackie and Justin will offer us. Let's move a bit away from our heads and into our bodies. And so I invite you to just feel the feeling of the ground, or perhaps the carpet or a sofa underneath you. And just notice with curiosity and innocence what the feeling of that hard surface feels like underneath you. Does the ground or the carpet feel a little bit coarse or smooth? Notice your seat that's holding you. What does that feel like? In the mindfulness world, we talk a lot about beginner's mind. And so imagine that you're noticing the ground or the seat underneath you for the very first time. And so just notice what that sensation of sitting feels like with a very naive and innocent curiosity and wonder. What do I feel? And now I invite you to shift a bit into your mind and just notice right here, right now, what thoughts are coming up for you. And when you notice a thought, just choose to let it float away. Think about a light cloud just floating away, or a small child sailboat drifting away on a small pond. And with this style of meditation, a mindfulness of thought, we can actually put some distance between ourselves and our thoughts and realize that we are not our thoughts. They do not own us. They're just visitors who've come to say hi for a moment. And we can choose to let them in, but we can also choose to thank them for visiting and just say goodbye for now. And so with each thought, just choose to let it float or sail away. And if you find a space between thoughts, that's what we call meditation. Every thought is simply an invitation to let that string. I sometimes think about the memories from Dumbledore's Pensieve for any Harry Potter fans out there. You can choose to just let that thread come up and then just choose to let it go. Enjoy and notice the black space that we have and we can create between our thoughts. And see if you can swim into or dive into that black space in between. This is spaciousness. This is meditation. And now let's shift gears a bit and become aware of what emotions we're feeling in this moment. Do you feel nervous or anxious or relaxed? You might feel very connected, held in community right now, or you might feel isolated. Nervous or relaxed, open or focused. Whatever you feel is perfectly fine, perfectly human, and natural. This is a style of meditation, a mindfulness of emotions, where we can notice our emotions, but just like thoughts, we can also choose to not become too attached to them, positive or negative. Just notice your emotion. And everything just wants to be heard, even our emotions. And so sometimes once we hear it, we notice it, we can feel that emotion slip away. And in this way, we notice that, like thoughts and like everything else in life, our emotions are impermanent. So just notice an emotion and then see if that changes, even one moment, 1 second later. And now let's shift for a few moments into a mindfulness of mind meditation. And with this, I invite you to tap into that very deep feeling of just being alive in this moment. If you ask yourself with a very gentle curiosity, what does it feel like to be conscious right now? Just notice what comes up for you. And it's very easy to think about our consciousness or our mind being confined to something that we perceive as our head, that we've seen in a mirror, but actually never seen on ourselves. So I invite you in this moment to think about letting your consciousness, that sensation, that feeling you have, that is, I am awake right now, I am alive, think about that filling the room that you're in. Expanding your consciousness from this perception of a physical head into filling the whole space that you're in. And then perhaps the whole block that you're on. And perhaps even your whole neighborhood. What if we think about our own awareness, our own consciousness as being vast? Almost of infinite greatness. And with this feeling of being infinite, vast, grand, it can become a little bit easier to let minor annoyances or difficulties in our day just float away. And think about, I am vast. I am infinite. And let that be deeply empowering for you. And when you're ready, you can stretch your arms up if that feels good. You can stretch your legs out if you'd like. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes if your eyes have been closed. That felt beautiful. I just want to thank each of you for being part of that meditation. It felt quite vast and beautiful. The opposite of whatever we might consider the word petty meaning. It felt very deep and beautiful. And with that good feeling of vastness and infiniteness, I am really excited to introduce two dear friends of mine who are world renowned for teaching people how to get into a state that they call flow consciousness, which is about living in flow. Jackie is a transformational coach, a facilitator, international speaker, and pioneer in the area of flow. She and Justin, as I said, are the co-founders of the Flow Consciousness Institute, which holds trainings and retreats and workshops around the world, working to shift consciousness on a global scale. And they are blending science and spirituality into practical tools for living an enlightened life. Her work has been featured in Forbes and Fast Company, and she serves as an advisor to several nonprofits and sits on boards as well. Justin also himself is an international speaker, serial entrepreneur, and consciousness researcher, working to create large-scale shifts in human consciousness, yeehaw, integrating high-level intuitional skills more deeply into the business world and everyday life, and delivering solutions-focused media to a global audience. They will talk with us about merging intuition into business and also conducting deep research into the practical applications of consciousness enhancing. So with that, so thrilled to have you, Jackie and Justin. Over to you guys. Why don't we start, if you can, actually, with a quick introduction of what it means to live in flow.
Beautiful. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Dina. We are honored and delighted to be here with your amazing community. So yeah, flow consciousness, we just wanted to give you a quick idea of what that is, because as experienced meditators, so many of you have probably had a taste of what's known as a flow state, that state of expanded awareness where time seems to stop. You have expanded creativity, and this idea popularized by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the Hungarian positive psychologist. This is the flow that most people are aware of. But we talk about flow consciousness, and flow consciousness is a new operating system for your consciousness that allows you to live in a more limitless reality. And so it's really stripping away all of the layers of egoic programming, conditioning, all of the beliefs, the perceptions, the biases, the judgments, all of these things that we've taken on that are not the truth of who we are, so that we get to live from our true nature, from our essence. And life conspires in our favor. We have this expansiveness and this sense of effortlessness in everything that we're doing. The resources that we need to thrive come to us in perfect synchronicity. There's expanded exponential growth, and this quality of really just being able to dance with whatever life throws your way. So whatever challenges you're facing, you're able to really let go of the reins, surrender control, and really just learn to trust life and come to this profound place of equanimity and inner peace.
I love that. That sounds great. I think each of us, a lot of us are meditators on the call. We have some people that are relatively new, but a lot of us have dipped into tastes of that. But to live with that feels pretty friggin' good, right? Oh, by the way, I want to invite everyone to bring in questions as they come to you. So Mercedes or Beverly, anyone, Lydia, anyone that has questions, anyone on this call, please just put them in and we'll try to get to each of them. But I want to first ask both of you guys. So that sounds great, right? Who's not in for that? What are some non-obvious things that we can do to start dipping into that?
Yeah, well, there's quite a few actually. And that's really what we do is we come up we do deep research into the nature of reality, into consciousness, and we figure out all the different ways that we can get ourselves into this state, which the flow consciousness is really like being in peak meditation all the time when you master it. So we thought today we'd talk about two things that we could really do to tap into that are really easy to do and can also take you pretty deep. And so it's important to understand that flow consciousness has two key aspects: is inner flow and outer flow. And so, that's like kind of like a meta structure in how you get into flow consciousness. So you want to optimize your inner experience and your outer experience, or how we perceive our outer world, so we can get into that. So one of the ways that we can work internally, which is really powerful and really synergistic with meditation, but also takes the practice even deeper, is by actually like rewiring our belief structures, the most fundamental layers of our consciousness and our mind. And a lot of meditations focused on thoughts and quieting your thoughts and
a lot of people have difficulty quieting the monkey mind. Anyone had that experience where you're in meditation and it's just like nonstop chatter? Well, this is the way of really having the understanding of where do your thoughts come from.
Right. And so, there's a whole model that we teach in flow. It's like the reality algorithm of like how we generate our thoughts and our experience of reality and so on. But to keep it simple, because we don't have a lot of time today, the key aspect to that, one of the key aspects to that, is working at the level of belief, because beliefs in tandem with our emotions are what actually generates our thoughts. So most people aren't aware of this, but we have hundreds of limiting beliefs that we inherit from our culture, our parents, that we pick up from our experiences, and so on and so forth. And these are what create most of the problematic thoughts that we have. And they create most of the negative thoughts that we have. And so if you can discover what your unique limiting beliefs are, and then shift them in the direction of flow, or being in meditative consciousness, or in compassion, or whatever, you can reprogram yourself at these deep layers to be in meditation or meditative states all the time. So the key is to go below the surface. Don't just, when you have a negative thought, do not swipe left. You actually want to take that thought and say, okay, what is creating that thought? Start asking yourself powerful questions, and we'll talk about some of these in a second, that reveal the layers of your subconscious, what's below that thought, and get you down to these core root beliefs that are creating it. And then instead you can work on swiping left on that and switching that belief to something that's positive, and then you start to reprogram yourself piece by piece to be into these different states.
Yeah. So if you're just trying to get rid of the thoughts that you're having, it's like cutting away the branches of the tree, but then the tree is still there. So when you're working at the level of belief, you're really taking it from the roots and really uprooting everything, and then the thoughts naturally fall away. So you come into this place where your mind is naturally free, and you have so much more spaciousness just as your default way of being. So it's important to understand that you have, hundreds of these limiting beliefs and these emotional patterns and trauma imprints and things in your subconscious mind. So we're only aware of, less than 5% of these beliefs are in our conscious awareness. So we really need to bring that mindfulness, that you've been practicing, to really see where those beliefs are lurking beneath the surface that are actually creating these emotional triggers and responses and these looping thought patterns. So what we're going to teach you is a really powerful mindful questioning process. So then you get to use your experience, you get to use the events that are happening in your reality, the thoughts that you're having, the emotions that you're feeling, as a feedback mechanism, so you can start to reverse engineer and see what's underneath the surface.
So let's take one. By the way, this is everything. It sounds simple, but it's so profound. So let's say you have something that's, I'm not worthy. Maybe you weren't so popular as a kid. I'm asking for a friend, of course. No, I'm just joking. Let's say that, we've all had moments, right? Where you maybe weren't that popular kid at camp or junior high or whatever. And so you have this feeling that I'm not worthy. And then maybe you accept behavior that you shouldn't accept from a loved one or a spouse or someone you're dating or a boss or whatever it is. How would you reprogram that?
Yeah. So let's put it this way. There's all kinds of ways to do this, from simple to really sophisticated, and involving all kinds of different neuroscience based techniques. And for the sake of this call, we're going to start with one that's really easy to use and that anybody can use safely in wherever they are. So basically, the first thing that you want to do is discover what is at the root, okay, and anything that might be there. So it might seem like I'm not worthy is a root belief, and it is a pretty deep one. But you actually you'd want to question that and see really where it's emerging from. Like, why do you believe that you're not worthy, right? So this is what Jackie was talking about a second ago. We have these mindful questions that we ask. And so I'll type some of these in the chat when she's talking, but one of them is questioning the belief or the negative thought. So why am I having this thought, or why am I having this belief? What am I making it mean about myself? So if you have the thought, well, I'm not worthy of good things happening to me. Okay, well, what are you making it mean about yourself? Well, that nothing good is ever going to happen to me. What are you making that mean about yourself? That I don't deserve love, and I don't deserve kindness. And then you keep probing down, and you get down to the root level belief. And when you get down to the root level belief, that's really where you want to work, because that's what everything else is stacked on top of. And so, usually, not always, but usually, the opposite of the root level belief is going to be the positive, expansive version that gives you the opposite experience of reality that you want to start to program in. And we'll talk a little bit about how to do that in a second.
Yeah, so the way our brains work, we have this reticular activating system that's always filtering all of the sensory information, all of the data that's coming in every moment. And it does it in a way that's super efficient, so you don't have to relearn everything every time you walk out the door. If you had to relearn what a fork was every time you saw it, you'd never get anything done. And so we have confirmation bias and this way of sorting all of the information that's coming in a way that backs up what we already believe to be true. And so if we hold on to these beliefs in our subconscious that I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, I don't belong, I'm going to be abandoned, Justin just put, oh no, you put the questions, but we can send you some common limiting beliefs too. And we're always going to find evidence to support that. So whatever experiences we're having, we're going to interpret them through our beliefs and our perceptions and sort according to these limiting beliefs that we have, and to back them up essentially and validate them. And that's actually deepening the grooves in the neural pathways. So, like Justin was saying, when we work with people, we're working not just at the mental level, but we work at the mental, emotional, energetic, and physical level to uproot these beliefs. But this is a practice that you can start to use today to question the thoughts and the emotions that you're having, to drill down to the root belief. And then you can choose the opposite, more positive, flow-enhancing belief, and you get to hijack that same mechanism and use it to find evidence of what you want to be true and what you want to create and who you want to be. So you'll take, I am worthy of love. And then every time that something happens, a friend sends you flowers, someone calls you to check up on you, every time that you have an instance that validates that, you affirm that I am worthy of love because this happened. And you start to look for evidence of the belief that you want to take on, the belief that you want to be embodied. And you live as if you already have that belief.
Right. And most importantly too, affirming it is important. But a really powerful, neuroscience-based hack to wire in the new belief on top of affirming it is to take action on that belief and to really embody that new belief and to ask yourself, how would my behavior be different if I had this belief? Or what would I be doing differently? Or maybe when you start to look through the lens of that belief, you naturally get some ideas that are inspiring or exciting or expansive that you might be able to take action on. But you basically want to ask yourself, what can I do to affirm that this is true, literally and figuratively? Because when you typically only take action on what you believe, And so when you start to take action on a new belief, it actually sends your brain into a state of neuroplasticity, because you're now doing things and having experiences that you didn't previously, which causes us to go into a neuroplastic state, and you're taking action on a new way of being. So you're subconsciously affirming that belief to yourself. So your brain goes into a neuroplastic state, your neurons are easily imprintable, and then you're taking action on this new positive belief, and so it wires that in really deeply. And if you keep that up for a couple of weeks, it completely changes your being, and it completely changes your belief, and you actually start to experience that instead of what you previously had.
Yeah, and also to find models of possibility. So whatever it is that is the new belief that you want to become embodied, who do you know, whether in real life or, on TV and in film and the movies, whatever, who is the embodiment of that belief, or that has the thing that you want? Because if it's available for them, it's possible for you too. And so by looking for that in your reality, it's affirming that that is possible and available to you as well. So yeah, just to recap. So using the mindful questioning process that we put in the chat there, and we can also send you a document so you have it. Whenever you're having a thought loop, or thoughts that are negative or critical or whatever it is, or an emotional trigger, you're having intense emotional experience, you get to use this mindful questioning process to drill down as deep as you can. I'm not worthy is often, one of the deepest ones, but you might be having I don't belong, I'm not lovable, to just really make sure you're getting to something that feels core, it feels really deep. And if you're not there yet, just keep asking the same question. Keep asking, what am I making this mean about myself? Why am I having this thought? And get to the deepest root. And then you choose the opposite, most positive, flow enhancing belief, and you start to act as if you are the embodiment of that belief, and start to gather evidence to reinforce that neural pathway, to affirm that belief within yourself while finding models of possibility.
That's awesome. So this is very deep stuff and incredibly powerful. And a lot of that is internal, which has been amazing. Let's talk for a little bit about the external.
Yeah. So there's like 7 key external practices that we teach to help people find flow conscious or track flow through their decisions out in the world. But one of the ones that is a really fun one to play with off the bat is really learning to reorient how you navigate life around your intuition, in particular your feelings, right? We actually encourage people to make every single decision from a place of deep intuition. That's the goal. It can be challenging to do that because oftentimes it doesn't make sense to our conscious mind. But at the same time, when you really look at the science behind intuition versus, logical thinking, planning, rational analysis, which is what we use 90% of the time to navigate the world, intuition greatly outweighs those faculties, and it's so much more accurate. And it really is optimizing for things that we can't even understand with our conscious mind. And the real key to starting to learn how to use intuition powerfully is to start to tune into how you feel and let your feelings guide your decisions versus your mind take control of the decisions. And oftentimes you'll notice when you start to do this that what your mind's telling you and your feelings are suggesting there may be a mismatch. And what your feelings are suggesting may not make sense. And it's really important, especially in those situations, to be trusting that feeling, because if you don't, what happens is that you end up not taking into account circumstances that your mind can't see, that your intuition can, because of the way it works. And it ends up limiting you. So when you start to live from your intuition consistently, you end up in a much deeper flow state. Also feeds back into your meditations and so on.
Yeah, and also just to draw a distinction, when we say feelings, we're not talking about emotions. Often those are confused. So by feelings, we mean purely the subtle energies, the felt sensations in your body, which, if you've been working with Dina and a part of the path, no doubt you know how to body scan and really tune into those subtle energetics and those feelings of lightness or expansion or electricity or tingles. Or everyone has a unique intuitional signature, how it shows up for them. So this practice that we offer you to really make every decision from this felt sensation for a week and just see how it goes, from what you wear in the morning to what you eat throughout the day to where you go, who you spend time with, all of those decisions, really checking in and not thinking about, oh, I should be doing this, or, oh, it's next on my to-do list, because we're often operating from our minds and, rationality, and our rational minds can only see a sliver of what's possible. And it has so much limitation because of, all of these limiting beliefs that we just talked about. So our perception of what's possible is really narrow. So your intuition is connected to so much more and has access to so much more data. So if you tune into the subtle energetics, the felt sensation in the body, and use that as your compass to make all of your decisions. And, again, this is a simple practice, but it's not easy because, like Justin said, it doesn't often make sense. It's non-linear. So we have to learn to trust it. And
let's just say, Jackie, what you guys are saying exactly parallels the Buddhist wisdom, which says that the body has much more wisdom than the mind. And the great Vedic teacher, Tom Knowles, talks about the faint level of feeling. That's your gut, that's your intuition. And he calls it charm. And he says to always follow your charm. I'm mindful we only technically have 2 minutes left. So let me ask you a couple quick questions for quick answers. Sure. And then maybe we can get to more of those 7 of the external cues. We have Beverly, who asked, how do we get started with flow consciousness? But I think we have that. It's both the beliefs and start following your intuition. So I might move on from that. Kathy Riva is asking us from Port Washington, how do you know if you're in flow? If you have to ask, does that mean that you're not? Is there a quick answer to that?
Yeah, well, it's also a paradox because you can never truly be out of flow, but you're in flow. We have 6 hallmarks of flow. You start to experience synchronicities, these meaningful coincidences all the time. The right resources you need show up at the right time. You experience exponential growth. We talked about this a bit in the beginning, that sense of radical trust in life and this place of equanimity that you come to this peace regardless of what's showing up. So you can use the hallmarks of flow to calibrate how in flow you are.
That's amazing. Thank you. So Jonathan is asking, is it possible that one could just end up covering up the destructive beliefs? Is it possible to unload that destructive stuff for good and climb out of that groove?
Yeah, totally. I mean, this is what does that. Most of the time people don't do that. Like, and I'm not trying to jab meditation. I've been meditating every day for 15 years. I love it. It's key. But what happens is things get covered up when people don't go to this level and don't go to the bottom of the well and start to examine what's there. Now, to give a full, accurate picture, like Jackie said, it's not just about the beliefs. The beliefs are the first piece, and you can make progress working there, but you ultimately want to work on the emotional level too, the energetic and the physical. So that's actually working with your physiology, working at different levels of your subtle energetic fields, and working with the emotions directly. So in our programs, we take people through practices that work on all these 4 things at the same time so that they can actually have that full spectrum release. If you do the practice that we suggested today, it's going to be super good for the mental level, but there's still going to be pieces that you need to address on the emotional, energetic, and physical.
Yeah, we have one of our students on the call here who's been successful at excavating some very deep trauma and moving through that. And so that's really the place that we work is at the mental, emotional, energetic, and physical level to really address all of the different imprints, where it's stored in the body, and work to really clear it forever.
That's everything. That's awesome. Thank you so much. We have a question from Julie Brooke, which is this related to Gladwell's Click? I think Click is actually Ori Brofman. I'm actually in that book. You probably are. You like this too, Jackie, with the high click factor with people, but is it connected with that?
I haven't read it, so I'm not familiar.
I don't know about Click, but I know, there's another question on Gladwell's Blink down here on decision making about a robust study on intuition versus reason judgment for outcomes. And there actually are quite a few, and we have an archive at the Institute. We collect this kind of stuff. And there's actually a number on them, and every single time it shows when intuition's properly assessed over the right timescales. That's really important. And, like some of you guys may be familiar with Daniel Kahneman's work, and he's, he won a Nobel Prize for his research into decision-making. But the problem with most of the decision-making studies is that they only assess outcomes over a really short time period. And intuition is optimizing you for success across the duration of your life. It's saying what is your highest arc of success and what's also ideal for everyone else involved. So you have to study intuition over long time scales to get accurate data. And so the studies that do that and do longitudinal studies over, a few months, a few years is even better. All across the board are showing that intuition on average has a 50% or higher success rate, which is over rational intellect and logic, which is really, really, really high if you think about it.
Yeah, I love that. You guys have been so generous. This is amazing. We're going to do breakout rooms. If you guys are able to hang out, we'll come back to you for a little bit more if you're able. But before that, I want to make sure to ask, you've been so generous. This is mind-blowing and profound and everything. How can we support you?
Well, we're on a mission to get this work out in the world in a major way. So if it resonates with you, please share it out. Come to the Flow Consciousness Institute, flowconsciousness.com. We have free trainings,
articles,
podcasts,
research papers, all the things. So come and enjoy. There's a lot of free stuff there, and if you like it, share it. That'd be really helpful.
Okay, awesome. And we'll send a link out to everyone. Every single person that's on this call, we'll send you a link. And actually, we're on a panel together tomorrow.
Yeah, please come to that as well.
So I'll send that out as well. So we'll send that to you guys. And Michael, you've asked a great question. So we'll get to your question about how you can tie flow into meditation after the breakout rooms. All right. Well, as she gets on and as people start coming back from the chat, I wanted to bring in one more question that Michael is asking, which is a wonderful question for Justin and Jackie. Can you talk more about how this ties into meditation?
Yeah. So, how does it tie back into meditation? There's different layers of it. So, on one level, for example, having a powerful intuition, right? Having a well-honed intuition is like correlated with being in the theta state. So theta brainwave state, and even alpha to a little bit in gamma as well, which are all states that meditation take you into. And so there's kind of this beautiful like synergy and feedback loop between meditation and learning to live from your intuition. It's like two sides of the same coin, right? Like meditation is you're sitting, you're going silent, you're kind of cutting yourself off from the world to hone your intuition, to hone those different states of consciousness. With flow, you're taking that off the mat and into the world and saying, okay, how do I train myself to continue to stay theta, alpha, gamma, and so on out in, everyday life, right? So bringing that meditative consciousness, that meditative state out into everyday life. And then also like we were talking about previously, doing that deep work on yourself, because there's a phenomenon, there's a lot of times, we'll see these meditation teachers who fall from grace. They've been meditating for 20 years and they're able to really enter these powerful non-dual states. And then they also have really bad behavior, and they're doing things that are super questionable. And so that's because of not addressing these deeper belief roots and emotional roots, these deeper traumas and patterns that are such powerful drivers of our behavior. So by addressing that, you're really getting the full spectrum of the benefit of being in these exalted states of consciousness for meditation, and also stabilizing them in really deep stage development so that the states last. And when you get out of meditation, it's not like, oh my gosh, that beautiful awareness is fading and now I'm kind of entering back into my everyday reality and it's kind of whatever. Instead, your everyday reality becomes incredible. So when you leave, that peak state of meditation, you still land in that really, high stage of consciousness, and you can stay there. So they really complement each other beautifully.
Yeah, I was sharing with someone today that 5 or 6 years ago, I was working with a research team using transcranial magnetic stimulation to harmonize brainwaves in children with autism and Navy SEALs with PTSD. And while I was there, I was like, hey, do you mind tweaking my brain? Give me a tune-up. The treatment was incredibly expensive, so I had access to it for free. And so they did my EEG, and what came back was really astounding. The doctor had said that I was 3 standard deviations below the norm on a scale of anxiety, and that I had the most coherent, synchronous, efficient brain patterns that he'd ever seen. All of my brain waves were high alpha, 10.5 hertz, which is a flow state. And previously, when I was younger, I'd been diagnosed with a generalized anxiety disorder. So as a result of doing this work consistently for years of really reprogramming these beliefs, emotional patterns, trauma imprints, all of that, I've come into this place of, just a really coherent brain pattern. So this is that now that's my default way of being. And so what we see with our students and people that we work with, it's the same thing that, again, you don't have to work so hard to achieve these states because it becomes your default way of being.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, you guys are incredible. We will send out info about Jackie and Justin and the work they're doing at the Flow Consciousness Institute. I want to say our minds are blown, but our minds are primed to be rewired in a positive way. So deep, deep thanks to you.